Hello, folks, and thank you for joining. This is Jenny Ward. As I always like to say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Today, we are going to go through a very quick and simple review of how to create a Power App from a SharePoint list. The agenda for today will be best practices for connecting to the data. There's a couple of different ways to do that. So we're just going to review kind of what the benefits and caveats are of the different approaches there. We'll do a quick overview of the Canvas app itself. I'll show you some different options that you have there for laying out the fields within the app. And then we'll go through a couple of tips and tricks that I'll teach you. First of all, if you're familiar with Power Apps at all and the SharePoint Online environment, you're going to notice that there is a relatively new feature within SharePoint Lists that is a Power Apps dropdown. The beauty of that is if you're looking to create a very quick mobile size app, that is to say one that would fit nicely on your iPhone or your Android or your Windows phone, then the Power App button to create an app from the SharePoint list is the best and easiest way to do that. Because we in our environment are typically creating apps that will be presented on web pages or more specifically in Teams, we like to use the tablet size app, just as it sounds, better for an iPad, better for a Surface laptop, better for a computer screen, because the dimensions of that app lend itself better to a laptop or a computer screen. So if you do create it from the SharePoint list, you will be able to change it if you must. However, it will be very difficult. Many, many steps to get that done. It's just not a feature that's easily built in yet. Anyway, I can tell you that I have voted on that in the user voice, but it's just not something that's available yet. So know that if you create the app from here, this is going to be the result. It will be a very simple phone-like layout for your app. Instead, what you can, and in our opinion should do, is go to Power Apps itself and create directly from there. The advantages will be that you can have templates to choose from if you want to. Today, we're going to work from a blank app in tablet layout. So that's where we're going to show the different size rather than just that mobile size. And that can be done from apps and create. And we'll go through and we'll do that together in a moment. It will guide you through each step. You're going to be able to pick what you want. If you use a form, that's going to be your edit view. That will be the equivalent of new form or edit form in SharePoint. Or gallery would be the equivalent of your all items view in a SharePoint list, that default all items view. Once you get into the Power App and you decide what type of form you want on the page, either an actual form or a gallery, you're going to be able to connect to data. As you can see that there's a very handy connect to data link right on that element that you've added to the page. You can select SharePoint, and then from there you're going to be able to select the URL for your SharePoint site and then the list on that site. Data source selection will then be on the right. Once you select the source, it is literally going to be that simple. All of the fields are going to appear on the page. Okay, so let's switch over and we'll get started with creating that in Power Apps itself. So this is the list that we are going to use to create the Power App. This is a simple project request form that we have on our SharePoint Online site. This is our PPM Works demo team site. So as you can see, this is project request. We've got basic project information in here: project name, project manager, the start and finish dates of the project, the estimated duration, the project type, whether it's light or complex, the description, and then this is just elements that are part of the other fields. So project manager text is just the initials of the project manager and then the ID value of the field. So if we go to Power Apps, that would be powerapps.microsoft.com, and we're going to go to create. So this is where I clicked here on the left. You'll see there is a Canvas app from blank. Okay, There are three different types of apps here. Canvas is going to be the blank one that's going to be connecting to SharePoint lists and similar items. So that's what we're going to select. And then here's where you can see it's defaulting to tablet here. I could choose phone if I want to, but we're going to call this project request app for webinar. Okay, and then we're going to create that. Now, once we create it, we're going to have to sign in with our credentials. In this environment, I use a domain admin credential because that's the one that has the permission to everything. So I can be sure when I'm doing a webinar, I'm not going to get any of those permission errors that if you're a SharePoint admin, you're used to seeing on occasion. Once the app loads, you'll see that you'll get kind of a happy little welcome screen here that will give you some tips and tricks if you want them. We're going to skip this for now, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to add an item from the content pane, okay? And we're going to add an edit form to the page, okay? Now this is what showed in my screenshot earlier on my PowerPoint. So the form is loaded onto the page. I'm going to stretch this form so it fills the page, and then I'm going to click the Connect to Data button. Now from here, you can see the entities are showing on here. This would be more CDS entities that I'm looking at here, but we want to look for SharePoint. So I'm just actually going to type SharePoint in the search box, and I'm going to select it. Okay, and from there, I'm going to choose the one that's connected to my credentials. I have two different connections established there, so that's why there were two to choose from. Okay, but here I'm going to choose the demo team site that we were just looking at. And from there, once I select it, all of the available lists on that environment are going to appear. Okay, so I'm going to select project request, and then I'm going to connect to that list. Okay, so now I connected to data. Well, why didn't they magically appear like I said they would? Well, there's one more step. Over here on the right, this is the properties panel for this edit form that I've added now. Okay, I am going to change the data source now to that project request list that I connected to. Once I do that, give it a moment, and then the fields automatically appear. Okay, so on the left-hand panel here, we're looking at the data sources view, the data sources panel here. If I switch to tree view now, I can see that the app is the overall entire app. The screen is this particular screen I'm looking at. You can see still nothing shows that it's selected. And then form 1 is that new edit form. Okay, if I wanted to rename that, I could. There's an option to rename it here. I do make it a best practice to go through and rename things so that the names actually have meaning. This form is just for this example, so form 1 is going to be sufficient. Okay, so then if I expand form 1, you can see these are all of the fields that were automatically added. Okay, so I've got each of these are called data cards. They're placing them in automatically. And if I expand the data card, you can see there are different elements to each of the data cards. The two probably most important ones that you're going to be using and referencing most often will be the top level data card, that's the entire container for that data. And then there's the data card value. So this would be a good example of a place where I would rename, and I would call this project name value. My preference is to use no spaces and use camel case where the capital letters are the beginnings of the words. Okay, that just makes it easier for me to find those going forward. Okay, so now I know where there's actually data, where that value is stored is in the project name value field. Okay, I could go through and I could do this for all of those. I'm not going to bother to do that for the sake of this demonstration. Now, we've got project name, project manager. I showed you there were a couple of extra fields here, this project manager text. I don't need it, and I don't want it in here because I already have the project manager name in here. I'm simply going to delete it. Now, as you may have noticed, when I deleted it, Power Apps seemed to make an executive decision and moved things into a different position, okay? That's fine, but it's not always what you want. So say that we want the project type to be the second field instead, because we want them to decide, okay, what's the name of this project and what kind of project is it? You'll see that when I move my mouse around this data card, not until I'm up in the upper left corner here can I grab it, okay? I'm going to click there. I'm going to click and drag it to this place, and you can see how a gray hover bar appears. Okay, this gray bar indicates, okay, I'm placing this card now before this one. Okay, so now it's shifted everything. So now project name, project type, project manager has gone into there. We've got start and finish and duration. Those make sense on the same row because they're all date type fields regarding the duration of the project. The description of the project. Now, description, that's kind of a little bit short for what we want for description. So I'm going to stretch that field. I'm going to do it in two places. As you can see, once I stretched it, this started to wrap around again. I'm going to increase this size also so that there's more room for typing there. And I'm going to change this to multi-line, okay? So whatever data card I have selected here on the left, the properties for that data card are going to appear on the right. Okay, you can see when I switch to this one, I'm on the project name data card, or specifically in the project name value element. Okay, this one is the description data card, and this is the description value element that's still called data card value 7. Approval status will be the field that will be a good example of a field where we'll be able to use Power Automate to send a response back to that field and get that field updated. So if we wanted to include in this Power App a way to send approvals, we can do that. And then once the approval is received, then a project can be created automatically. All of that can be done with Power Automate. We love doing that stuff. I encourage you, if you have any interest in that kind of automation in your environment, reach out to us at info@ppmworks.com. So I'm going to do one more change here. I'm going to remove the attachments because I'm not going to need that. And I am going to add one more button here because the next question might be, okay, once this Power App exists, how does this data actually get back to the SharePoint list? Well, it doesn't until we put a submit button there, okay? So I could just simply add a button here. If I go to the insert window here in the insert panel and I click button, I can add that. But I'm doing this intentionally to show you that once I do this, this button is now parallel to form, okay? It's not actually in the form, and we want it to be in the form. I can tell you there are times when you can cut and you can paste. This is not one of those times, okay? Once you decide that there's a button there, then it's not going to let you decide where to put it unless you kind of do what I call a jury rig solution, okay? So over here on the right, now I've got, as you see, I've got the entire panel selected now. See how it's a little bit tricky for me to do that? If I click here, I'm selecting this card. If I click here, it will select the whole thing. But if you have a page that's full of fields, it's going to be tricky to ensure that you're selecting that whole form. So you can do it here on the left-hand side, okay? See how I can also make these selections here? So clicking on the form itself will ensure that you have the entire form selected, and therefore we can look at the properties of the entire form. We're going to click Edit Fields here, and we're going to add a new field, okay? Now, I can add fields here, and this will show me the available fields that I do not have in the form itself right now. But we're not going to do that. We're instead going to use this little ellipses here for more actions, and we're going to add a custom card. The purpose of this custom card is it's going to serve as a container for the button that I want to add, okay? Now I'm going to insert a button. Now, as you can see, I've got the edit form here, okay? I'm going to go back to tree view. I've got edit form. I've accidentally added a new card there, so I'm going to remove it. You can see that right here. I'm going to do that up here. It's a good demo because I accidentally click on those often. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that. So now I'm back in the form. I am going to click on the button that I just created. And now there are two properties that we're going to want to change in the button. As you can see here within the form, okay, I'm underneath the form. I'm going to collapse these so you can see all of the elements that are in the form. Okay, now I've got this data card 1, which is the new one that I've added, that's parallel in hierarchy to all of these other data cards, and then there's a button within it. Okay. I'm going to select the button itself, and there are two properties that I'm going to change. Okay. I'm going to change the on select property, and I'm going to change the text property. I'm going to assume that you don't want the button to still say button. I mean, who am I to say maybe you own a button factory, but I find it unlikely. So I'm going to just change this text to submit. Okay, it could be okay, it could be save, it can be whatever you want, but that's where you put that in the text property. And then we're going to switch to the on select property of this button. And I'm going to change it to submit form. You can see that IntelliSense will kick in and will show you what the available options are. And then the syntax is we're going to open the submit form command and we're going to put in form 1. So we're going to submit this entire form is what that's saying. Okay. If you did something wrong here, it will tell you. Okay. See the red squiggly IntelliSense? Once you select the right thing, it will show. Okay. So we don't need to click enter there. In fact, if we click enter, there it will work, but what often happens is it will add an additional line in your code here that we don't need, okay? So we're going to just close out of that. If you wanted to add, a logo at the top, you can do that. I can tell you that media here is where you'd upload images. And then once you do that, then you're able to insert the media, the image, and you're going to be able to, just like once we connected the data, you can see the data source over here. Once you add the media into the main portion of the Power App, then you're going to be able to reference the media there and insert it into the form. Okay, so there's kind of a tricky order of operations you have to go through. Lots of fantastic information on Microsoft Docs that can walk you through all of this stuff. And so now we've gotten the form the way we want it. We are going to click Save. I've already got the name of it because I created that name. I'm going to save it here. Once you save it, you can see I'm saving it to the cloud. Okay. And then what will happen once you save it and go out of the app and back into it again, you'll have a publish button available here. I'll show you that when I go here now and I refresh Power Apps, we should see a new Power App appearing. This is the one that I just created. Okay. I'm already in this. Okay. So I'm not going to just, I can click on it and we'll open it. You'll see what it looks like. Now that we've saved it, I have to sign in again. But we may not see it yet because it hasn't actually been published. Okay, and it will hang on the getting your data. Okay, so you have to make sure that you're publishing it. But I'll show you one more thing. Once you get to here, back on Power Apps top level. Okay, so you have to kind of go, sometimes you have to have two different windows open where you're working in the Power App in one, and then you've got the actual Power Apps list, just the main Power Apps page, open in another for the environment that you're connected to. This ellipses is going to allow you to share this. Right now, what it should show is just domain admin is here, but if I wanted to share it with my virtual colleague, Marina, who's also in this environment, I can do that. I can make her a co-owner, okay? And then I can share it, and an email will be sent to those new users, okay? So you can see that domain admin is the owner / creator, Marina Riggs is the co-owner, okay? And it is quite literally as simple as that, okay? So you start from the list. If you want to do the mobile app, you can just create from here. My recommendation, however, is that we use this Canvas app from blank option instead from the Create tab on the Quick Launch here in Power Apps. We'll choose Tablet. We'll connect to data, okay? Your data connections can always be seen here, okay? It looks like the little SQL database icon. Your tree view is always here. If you want to insert additional elements, you can open the Insert tab on the panel here, or you can use the Insert panel on the ribbon up here. Okay, but tree view is what you're going to be in most often. In these fields over here on the right, you have style options. This is the default. very large font. My old eyes are happy with this, but what I typically do is I lower these down to about 11. Okay, so there, again, the two different elements. We've got the label on it, that's the data card key. So I'm changing that property. I also want to select here so that I can change the font size of these as well. You can change the colors, you can change the background. You have lots of options with that. Okay, so now if I go again and I save it, and now, as you can see, now that it's written up to the cloud, we can see that publish button is enabled here, okay? So we're going to publish this version. And it usually takes a moment for that to publish. We'll give it another try, see what it looks like. Usually I give it 2 or 3 minutes just to be safe. Sometimes we refresh one more time. Yeah, so it's going to hang on the getting your data. Don't be alarmed if that takes 3 or 4 minutes. Typically is how long I see it to take. And sometimes what I'll do intentionally, if I'm going through development on an application, I will actually add or move a button to an odd place so that I can be sure that the publish occurred. So if I'm testing a particular functionality, it's a really good way to do that so that you can ensure the publish has actually happened. So we got all of the fields in there. We walked through editing the fields, adding the custom card to be able to put that button in, okay, inserting the button, the onSelect command. I added this to the webinar here, so you have it in the recording that you'll be able to later access on YouTube. So that is submit form, and then in parentheses, the name of your edit form that you've added. By default, it will be form 1. Or if you make a mistake, it will turn into form 2 if you add another one by accident like I did. You're going to change the text of the button to whatever you want it to be. I changed mine to submit. Save is just as well. Okay. And that's it. You'll publish, you'll save it first, you'll publish, make another change, save it again, and then publish will be enabled once it's out on the cloud. So we have some upcoming webinars coming up, which is what upcoming means. So the next one we have is on 5/21 for our project financials app. That is a custom list that we create that enables connection between a SharePoint list and project online data. It's great for reporting and for capturing data across the environment that isn't necessarily part of project online or cannot be made into project level fields. So we have a great tracker that does that. We encourage you to join us for that. There's lots of different options for that tracker tool. We have many videos on our YouTube channel. You can stay on top of the latest tips and tricks, particularly when it comes to the Power Platform. Microsoft is moving very quickly now toward Project for the Web and with Power Automate, Azure DevOps, and so forth. We have lots of different resources on that. So you can just get your feet wet and learn from us, and then work with us if you're interested in learning more. We have on-site sessions and tips and tricks sessions that we'd love to help your team with. You can see our YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/ppm Works. As I said, project workshops, the sessions can be delivered in person at your office or at a Microsoft office if you're near one. Typical length, depending on what the agenda is between 1 and 4 hours for 5 to 10 participants. And they can be customized to be directly relevant to your specific business needs. So depending on the type of organization you work for, we have experience in lots of different verticals. And so we'd love to talk to you about what your specific organizational needs are and how Microsoft PPM and the Power Platform can help you reach those PPM goals. If you have any questions on today's session, you can reach out to info@ppmworks.com, or regarding free workshops. Like I said, those on-demand recordings are at youtube.com/c/ppmworks. If you contact us at info@ppmworks.com, you'll learn about free planning sessions. You can meet your local specialist. I am in the New England area, and we have all over the country. We have people in California, people in Atlanta, everywhere. So just reach out to us, and someone will come to you if we can't do anything remote. I know today, in today's day and age, everything is remote. We can work that way too. You can find us on LinkedIn at ppm-works-inc, and our site is ppmworks.com, where you can find our events and our blog, and our email is info@ppmworks.com. Thank you so much for joining us today for this quick session. I hope you found it helpful, and I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day.